I must go make the video, my liege. May I be dismissed? She says, no, not yet. Oh, that's the spot. That's the good stuff right there. Oh, yeah. Good morning, Glue Troopers. And today we talk about one of the darker parts of model building, broken parts. As I mentioned when I was working on the Pawnee, those little wing alignment pins, and they were really small and they're 1/72 scale, as the holes did not actually line up exactly with the pins. Had to go with a pin vise drill the holes, and the holes were capped, so I also wound up trimming off a little bit of the pins, and it was all for naught because as soon as I put them in, just give them a slight move, they just snapped right off. Now, we all know there are different kinds of broken parts. There's, like what I had with the B25 with the brittle parts that just snapped, and those are some large parts. I mean, the bloody horizontal stabilizers, it's a big piece, and it snapped in half. Fortunately, it did it underneath the area that is you can't see because it's on top of it's down face down on top of the fuselage. But and when I put it back together and glued it up, it sealed up very tight. You could hardly see the crack, so that wasn't a huge problem. But it was just, I was shocked how easy it is. But then the wing insert tabs broke, and I had to make another one. And then of course it was the wing insert tabs or little alignment pins that broke on the Pawnee. And I've been having a lot of issues with parts breakage lately, and I guess using older kits, maybe in some cases the plastic gets brittle, but the Pawnee's brand new. It's just the type of plastic that they use, and the styrene they use bonds really well with the glue, but it was really easy to break. It also is very easy to shave and trim. It's a nice, slightly pliable styrene that was on the Pawnee, but it's also easy to mess up. So that got me wondering about how we go about fixing broken parts. Now, in my humble opinion, and since I don't script this, I'm just popping these ideas out as they come through my, as they get into the great cogitator, they come down with a great slide of knowledge, hit the great cogitator and out the mouth, and I got to make sure I engage the clutch before I put the mouth in gear, which is when I don't do that. When I pop the clutch on my common sense engagement transmission, then I say some pretty silly things sometimes, which is why I become an expert at making little comments right here where my hand is waving, which actually I don't think I'm going to make right now. But it seems to me that the worst, off the top of my head, the worst thing that you can break is a clear part, because it's one thing if you want to have some damage, class like a car accident scene or battle damage on an airplane canopy or something, but if you actually have a nice clear part in a windshield of a car or something and it breaks and you want the car to look nice, you pretty much have to make another one or get another one, because I don't know any way to clear up a clear part that breaks that doesn't show. Propellers, a lot of times we get the propeller blade that's knocked off. How do you go about putting a propeller blade back on? If you file it down flat where to have a nice fit, then you have the problem that the blade will be shorter than the rest of them. And I do know some people, when they get models, they actually like to cut off propeller blades off the hub and drill little holes and put tiny little pins in them. That way they can paint everything separately, and they can feather a prop or put some different pitch angle to it or something like that. And of course that's AMS, Advanced Modeler Syndrome. And Precious is honey's over here running around. She apparently is camera shy today. Of course, things like broken antennas and stuff like that. I broke the pitot tube on the B25 a couple of times and had to glue it back together. And again, brittle and small, but managed to do it. But if you look close, you can tell it's not exactly straight. A lot of people would just replace that with a new part. And of course, there's fabricating parts. I'm sure gosh, how many landing gears have we broken? gear doors. A lot of times little pieces like the gear door hinges that go in there, those seem to be something that like to break off on a lot of kits. Usually the finer aligning parts. And I know some people that cut that stuff off because they don't like the way it looks, because rarely is it very accurate. Now, on something like the Felix though, and the wingnut wings kits, if you have something that attaches, wingnut wings will actually make the part. So if you have like a gear door, it'll actually, well, the gear door's not playing, but I mean something along those lines, it'll actually, they'll make the hinge. So that's not advantage of 1/32 scale. And that gets into another thing, fixing a broken part in the scale or the size of the part. And in the case of the, getting back to the Pawnee, I just went ahead and shaved off and filed off those alignment pins on the wings, because when you did use them, the wing didn't seal up very well. And that meant I was going to have to try and get to a 1/72 scale model at wing root, try and get that putty in there. And I'm like, you know what, it's easier, just whack them off, sand till you have a nice flush fit. And now, if you look at the plane from the direct front, unfortunately the wings aren't perfect. The dihedral is a hint off. Big clumsy hands and old eyes. Kind of brings up the old adage that, what is it, modeler's hell. It's either eternity looking for pieces in the carpet, small pieces in the carpet monster, or masking off 1/72 scale canopies. Because 1/72 scale's got so many great advantages. You can get these wonderful kits that really look good on the shelf, and you get a lot of them on the shelf. They're not as expensive, yet they have a lot of great detail. But it can also be, tough. Somehow it just seems like the larger models are a little bit easier to deal with because they're just bigger. You can see what you're doing a little bit better. And I think that's one of the reasons, as I've said before, that 1/48 scale is so popular, is it's a really happy middle ground between the two. Of course, we've all broken machine guns, especially off of bombers. And there are two sets of machine guns that are the H-shaped, they're just the H-shaped barrels. One for on the B-25, one for the upper turret, and one for the lower turret. Now, since I'm not using the lower turret, I had two sets to work with, and I wound up breaking one, so I decided to use the other. And then I realized to paint the turret and everything, it was actually easier to go ahead and clip off the barrels. That way I could do the inside of the turret, tape it off, spray it, and then just slide the barrels in and glue them back in place. And it worked reasonably well, but I had a little more trouble aligning the barrels than I expected because there wasn't a lot for the glue to bite onto. It actually made some little tiny blocks inside for them to sit on. And so there's the times you deliberately break apart. Now there's a subject to how many times you have deliberately broken apart because in some way it facilitated making usually painting the model. And then you go through all the trouble to rig the antenna wires, and sure enough, eventually you look on the shelf and one of them just the glue let go, and then you're like, oh man, I don't want to go back in there, and you're afraid you'll break the model if you start messing with it trying to fix something like that. And then there's a part you break trying to fix the broken parts. Broken parts. Oh, and then of course, how many of us have broken that delicate part trying to get it off the runner? Even if you use a really fine clipper, sometimes you're like, I'm going to use this really fine little snipper, and it still breaks that little part. Oh, that ticks me off. I did everything right. It shouldn't have broken. So that was just kind of what I was wondering about today. We love the hobby, but one of the numerous aggravations is the broken parts. And don't even get me started on the parts that drop inside something like the back of a propeller hub or something in a car, and you get out and all of a sudden it's rattling. What's inside that let go? And there's no way you're going to get in there and fix it. So there's that. Well, that was just what I was thinking about this morning for no particular reason. I woke up and said, another day. Let's talk about models. And broken parts popped into my head. That's how the cogitator works. Well, guys, that's all I got for this morning. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Take care of yourselves, and as always, model on.